The Middle Ages in Europe. The Middle Ages is a time of great change in Western Europe, and it lasted between the fall of the Roman Empire and the start of the modern world, which is going to be the Renaissance and Reformation unit we will study next, when Europe will slowly begin to discover the world beyond Europe. A couple of things to remember from our last unit. After the Roman Empire split, it became two different parts. In the east was the Byzantine Empire, which would follow the Orthodox Christian Church. If you're familiar with Greek or Russian Orthodox today, this is that branch of Christianity. The other branch is going to fall into this different feudal kingdoms, which means that they're small independent kingdoms, not an empire, following the Roman Catholic Church. At this time in history, there are only two branches of Christianity, and none of the Protestant churches exist yet. When we left off in history, we'd been studying the Roman Empire, which controlled most of the land surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. My cursor is kind of circling the Mediterranean region. As you can see from this map, during the Middle Ages, Europe is going to break up into many small kingdoms, with the exception of what had been the Eastern Roman Empire is going to be something called the Byzantine Empire, controlled from Istanbul, which is where my cursor is headed out of. When Western Europe begins to collapse in the 5th century, many people are going to flee to the countryside. They're going to be leaving those cities that they had lived in during the Roman Empire. There will be no central government since the Roman Empire in the West has collapsed, and that's going to lead to a lot of disorder. Because of that disorder, travel will become unsafe. There isn't any military to protect the people. And trade will become less common because it is unsafe for people to travel from place to place. So people's worlds will go from being this big, vast Roman Empire into these small territories. This is going to be the beginning of the Middle Ages. This is the time from the fall of the Roman Empire to the discovery of the Renaissance, which will be a time when the Europeans, about 1,000 years later, will go back to looking at the accomplishments of the Greeks and the Romans. As stated before, government, law, and trade will all begin to break down, and people will be focused on their small little villages and small towns, not large villages and no large empire for a long time. People will then look to these military leaders who will rise in power because they need to feel safe, as well as the Catholic Church, which is based out of Rome. So the church will become a very important part of society during this time. That will last for several hundred years until a man named Charlemagne, or Charles the Great, who was a Germanic king. The Germanic tribes had already conquered much of the Roman Empire and led to its collapse. He is from one of those groups that is now based in modern-day France. He is going to begin to reunite much of Western Europe. His goal is to basically recreate the Roman Empire, which he will be able to do in a small part for a short period of time. He's going to be one of those one-man shows, just like Qin Shi Huangdi and some of our other leaders that we've looked at in the past. He is going to increase the size of his kingdom, and he's going to develop a new style of warfare, which were knights fighting on horseback. So if you think about knights in shining armor, this is the guy who kind of came up with that idea. Here's a picture of what he may have looked like. So his empire is going to reunite much of Western Rome, much of the Western Roman Empire. It will not last very long. It will really only be in power during his lifetime. Now, much of his accomplishments are beginning to spread around Europe and will spread to the Pope in Rome, who is the head of the Catholic Church, which at this time is the most important and powerful group in all of Europe, because there is no large empire. The Church will be the main power. Pope Leo III begins to see benefits with joining forces with King Charlemagne. And so he's going to crown him the Holy Roman Emperor, which is basically looking back at the old role of the Roman emperors before, but it's not going to be the same territory. This is going to be an example of the church and state working together. The church wanted to heavily influence the government that Charlemagne was beginning to do, and so they gave him this big compliment of calling him the Holy Roman Emperor. This is the opposite of the United States today, where the church and state are separate, meaning that the churches in America do not control the government, and nor does the government control the churches. And this is going to lead to a spread of Catholicism, because while most people were Catholic, there still were some influences from the old Roman religion, and Charlemagne becoming the Holy Roman Emperor is going to begin to spread Catholicism and make it stronger in Western Europe.